everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Forum IT. Today, we are talking about a topic that's changing everything we know about the internet. Maybe I'm too bold here, but how artificial intelligence is reshaping the way we search, discover, and understand information, that's quite a challenge and quite a topic. I'm Csaba Demeter, and my guest is someone who has been exploring this intersection long before most of us even imagined it. Dan Petrovic, Director of DEJAN, researcher, innovator, and one of the most respected voices in SEO and AI-driven visibility. Together, we will explore what happens when search becomes conversation, when algorithms start to understand meaning, and when SEO meets AI, or maybe even becomes it. Dan, welcome to Forum IT. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be with you today.
Dan, I have to tell you that I got introduced to your work and to your expertise via I think Lily Ray reposted something about what you were talking about AI at one point.
Yes, okay. Lily Ray and I often collaborate, exchange notes, and talk about various SEO-related matters. We even align on certain things around what do we call this new thing that we do. Mm-hmm. I think we both agreed that we just continue calling it SEO. We're in favor of saying that SEO now does more things, yes, and there's no need to rename our trade. So her and I are in alignment among many other people who are choosing to add more work and do new things, just like we always did, but continue doing under the brand of SEO. And of course, now we do AI, but that's just like any other thing we added to our Swiss Army knife of tools, like we did with mobile and everything else.
You already hinted my first question, actually. You had a very nice presentation in Amsterdam these days, and where you made a very bold title, and the idea is that SEO plus AI equals same SEO. What do you mean by that? And what's the implication, because AI is included in your title and also in your presentation, what's the impact of AI as you see at the moment regarding SEO?
So something interesting happened in our industry. We had a disruptive event where generative models started presenting information to the user in a different way than 10 results on the search results page, right? So to me, that's a presentation layer and a little bit of decision-making in the background, but still very much search engine driven. So in the past, we used to call them chatbots. We don't like to call them chatbots because chatbots sound like they're dumb little things that can't talk well from the old days when they were like heuristic driven. And so we didn't have a proper name for chatbots. If you ask chatbot what it is, it says, I'm an AI assistant. Mm-hmm. So these are AI assistants. And of course, we were thinking about, okay, these are driven by models. A model is something that an AI assistant is based on, plus other little tools like fetching information from the internet. So I think everyone in the world was like, okay, so how do we get better visibility in AI systems? And rather than rolling up their sleeves and working on solutions, people were confused and afraid and trying to come up with new marketing materials, new slogans, new acronyms, instead of doing the work. Remember when sometimes you have a big task to work on and you don't know what to do, so you decide to organize your desktop instead or clean your house. It's a little bit like that in the SEO industry. All the SEOs started, let's call it a different name, let's do marketing materials. They're doing all these things, but they don't really know how to do the trade.
What is the trade? What is the work? You were mentioning that not doing the work. What is the actual now needed work in order to do SEO and on a proper way in the era of AI?
Yeah. So first thing we have to understand is that AI cannot function well as an assistant without search. organic search drives AI intelligence responses. It's its memory layer. So when you do normal SEO, you are optimizing for the grounding sources that go into the model, which then presents it to the user. So I guess a lot of people are still experimenting, trying to figure things out. The honest answer is nobody knows how to properly optimize for AI. This is a complex field that not even researchers within Anthropic, OpenAI, Google understand fully. So I think we all, as an SEO industry, have to be honest, saying, we're figuring this out, we're working on it, we're trying to find a way, we're testing and experimenting, rather than providing, oh yeah, this is called LMNOP or GI Joe or whatever the new name for it is, but just saying the name without knowing how to do work honestly. So this is why I said on stage, we have to be honest about that, but that doesn't mean we can't experiment and we can't innovate. So in SEO industry, we have two concepts. One is understanding of algorithms and problems and opportunities. And the other one is control, where we try to influence things through outreach, used to be link building and on-page optimization, information architecture. Well, I see a beautiful parallel between what we do and what machine learning industry does. And so we do understanding and control, they do mechanistic interpretability and model steering. And there's a beautiful symmetry between the two worlds. And I chose to get as close as I can to machine learning and science as I can in my research and my work. Mechanistic interpretability is basically understanding the model's mind, why they do the things that they do, and what is coming out of the model output. And model steering is controlling that output to a desirable format. And of course, us as marketers, you want the model to say good things about your client, about their products, services, brands, and so on. And that's where we're at. We're in the stage of understanding, probing, and testing the control elements.
Mm-hmm. You wrote at one point in your life and your experience, which is quite long, well done, Dan, conversation with Google. And I'm talking about that one in your scenery, and we are seeing it as moving towards that line faster and faster, that Google and probably all the other search engines are moving towards more like a personal assistant that knows almost everything about us, our habits, our emotions, and in some cases, even our calendar and activities and everything there. What excites you about this, if this is the correct situation where we're heading forward, and what worries you about this?
Well, look, I'm all about excitement because it was more than 10 years ago, 2013, I wrote this article and I had a vision of what search will look like in 2023. And it could have happened sooner or later, but it happened in 2023. And I couldn't be happier. That was just exactly the moment when I predicted. And in that article, I predicted that we would chat to Google. We would have a back and forth exchange. Even in the comments, one of the readers said, what do you mean? Google's going to be like a chatterbot, he said. And I said, that's exactly right. We'll have a conversation, but they will have a memory layer about the user. And I think where we're heading towards personal assistants that have been talking to us for many years. They know the ins and outs of our personality. We're not there yet, but I think where we're heading is we'll have very strong memory layer associated with the user, and we'll have our AI friend that knows us very well, perhaps better than we know ourselves. And that will then translate into agentic layer, and things will start happening proactively rather than just sending Google on tasks, asking it question, getting answers, or saying, oh, go research this to me, and it goes on research for 20 minutes, comes back with results. Sometimes Google will go and look things up for you without you asking, being proactive, bringing you interesting things, and just having a nice conversational thing just to build that memory layer. And I think that's quite exciting. And everything else that comes after that, as I propose in that timeline, is going to be quite exciting. I'm not really scared or worried. I'm not a technophobe. I don't see a doomsday scenario or like some sort of end of the world or Skynet type situation. There will, of course, be a lot of privacy matters, copyright issues, and so on. And I've been quite vocal about AI systems using original user data to train their models on and use the original content for grounding. So basically, when a model wants to ground its response in search, so it does the lookup in search, finds some good stuff, embeds it in the result, I think content creators should be monetizing that type of thing. So OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, they should be doing little micropayments that will then replace the ads to compensate the content creators for their original work. So that's one part that I'm a little bit uncomfortable about, because the web is at a bit of a risk where content creators are no longer motivated to generate content because that content will just be absorbed, synthesized, and presented. Two risks with that. One, content is dying out because nobody's motivated. Second risk is misinterpretation. Let's say I write a really nice article and I present my views and opinions in a certain way. Then I have this interpretation layer, the AI, which takes my article, completely takes it out of context, reframes it in a different way, and gives user the answer in the way that I did not intend. So those are they look like nuanced little concerns, but they are quite big. So one is the monetization, and the other one is misinterpretation of information. I think apart from those two things, I'm not terribly worried about the future. I think this is all great user experience.
You already mentioned about how search is evolving, and search in terms of well, there are two ends to the search when we talk about search. When we talk about the search engine response page, for example, there are two actors: one who's serving what we are asking, and one who's searching on the search. And this is definitely, I see it in my own life, and I'm working marketing, so I use, of course, a lot of channels to make sure that our customers know about our services and products. But the good old days, we were optimizing for keywords and clicks, and now we are moving towards questions and, as you mentioned already, conversation. What is now the current or most important role an SEO specialist should do for a customer or client in order to make sure that they are present in the search and in, well, why not also in the large language model results?
Yeah, so SEO's role has largely not changed in the part that brings the results to the model. Because how search now works, the AI search, let's call it. And when I say AI search, I really mean both assistants like ChatGPT and Gemini and AI mode and so on. So what happens is user types in a multidimensional, multifaceted query, which is now more like a prompt. You're no longer just using a single query or keyword. You're telling a story. Then model's job is to decompose that story into what we call fan-out queries, multiple searches. And then Google Googles itself. And then collects, let's call it, it's a replacement for Fit20 open tabs. That's what I mean by good user experience. A user no longer has to open 20 tabs and have different searches and then scratch their head around, because we don't have very strong working memory capacity. We can hold maybe 7 items in our brains, and 20 tabs does not do well with that. So what's happening now is the AI agent is having all that information in the background, doing some selection, and that's the key. That's the new thing, selection. So somebody's making choices for us in the background. Does that make you uncomfortable? Are you relieved you don't have to do all that work? But some agent in the background is sifting through information and filtering what you will see in the end. Then choosing that final selection of websites to include in the synthesized result and just tell the user the answer or give options and so on. So as part of that, some websites will be filtered out and some will be included. That is what new SEO work is involving. Basically, we have to understand the model's bias towards or against certain brands, products, and services. And we have to understand how that bias influences models' selection choices and selection rate. So SEO industry now has an element of model psychology. We have to understand what's appealing to the model. So internally, just yesterday, we were designing a system as a team to help some of our clients. How do we make our clients as a choice? If one of our clients is a choice that model can pick, how do we make them irresistible for the model? And that's the new part of what SEO does now. It's not totally new because we used to do that. That used to be called click-through rate optimization.
Mm-hmm.
So click-through rate optimization is making results appealing for human selection. But we have selection rate optimization that I call. Selection rate optimization is designed for AI systems and agents, making a potential grounding citation candidate appealing, essential, attractive to be included in that selection. And I think that's the most exciting work that SEO can do right now.
Why is making a selection appealing optimization is important? Why should we optimize for selection optimization?
First of all, if you are not doing traditional SEO, then you're not even in the game. You're not in the mix.
So the start should be to start from the foundation and
SEO.
do the job of optimizing for SEO.
Crawling,
even in the AI
indexing,
era.
Crawling, indexing, ranking, everything same. So that the traditional SEO gets your website, hopefully, to the model as one of the many choices. And I'm talking, there could be like 100 different choices. And so you want to survive that filtering process. And you want to be one of the few surviving choices that models made to make a citation and mention in the final response. So the selection rate optimization is the second layer of survival. First layer of survival is being included in the search. If you're not ranking, then you're not going to be there. But if you're ranking and you're part of the mix and model says, yeah, no, and then filters you out, then you are in organic search, but you are not selected as the final answer. And so you're missing out on a huge level of visibility. There's a third element to that, and that's a long-term goal. You want to be prominent enough to get wired into models' memory. I'm talking pre-training, post-training, fine-tuning. So if I switch off the internet, there's no grounding to the model. Model doesn't see the search. I run the model dry, let's call it. And I ask the model, give me 10 brands that do the thing that I do. And you should be top of the mind without search. That is the ultimate goal, but that's like a really hard thing to achieve because it relies on influencing training data, getting everywhere. So, guess what? Branding, digital PR, outreach.
Link building still works?
I mean, link building, we don't care about links anymore. We just care about association, brand and entity association. So you want to be associated with the brands that are associated with a certain entity, or you want to be associated with certain entities or the entities that those entities are associated with. So it's an association network. And you want to be seen in a lot of places on the internet where people are talking about that, writing about it, and so on, and you want to be part of that conversation. If you're not, model's not going to pick you up, and you're not going to enter the training data. Now, one thing that's really important to understand is that big AI companies like Google, Anthropic, and OpenAI, they are not training their models on internet garbage anymore. They're done with that. Their models can speak English and any other language already well enough. They don't need the world knowledge. So getting into models' head is going to be a little bit more difficult than before. Reason for that is because, say, for example, GPT-5, when they rolled out that model, I tested that model using my probing techniques. And I found that that model doesn't have the same level of world knowledge that GPT-4 did. It actually knows less, especially some of the smaller and leaner models like GPT-5 Mini and Nano. They hardly know any facts about the world. They know enough to get by and to use the tools. And so their OpenAI's idea is to create small, intelligent model that doesn't know much world knowledge, but has strong tool use capabilities. So you can draw from the memory layer of the web, which is search indexes, and get the fresh information. And there's a practical side to this. To train a model, you burn a forest in energy and carbon emissions, right? So it's very, very wasteful to train model just to update its knowledge. And you don't want to store the model knowledge in its weights. Its weights are better utilized as an intelligence layer. So if we consider the future of AI being agentic, tool capable, and intelligent, but not knowledgeable. So those are very different things. Intelligent but not smart. And we have the web index as the memory layer. That's where things are at.
Dan, you have developed quite many tools what you are using in your research, in your presentation, and definitely for your clients. Tell me about those tools, and why I'm asking is because I want to have an insight in the head or in the work of a researcher to learn from you and maybe use your tools.
Yeah, look, we've been developing at a furious rate. And these are not, fine-tuned production-grade ready tools. We wanted to get as much tech stack developed as quickly as possible. So we constantly iterate. We have an idea, get it done. New idea, get it done. So one thing that I've been doing is as soon as I have a thought or a problem that needs solving, or I have a demo or a model that I've trained, I immediately launch it public. LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on, and I get public opinion and feedback on all these things. So far, the SEO community has been phenomenal in interaction. They jump on the tools, they find problems, they give me new ideas, and of course, my tools provide a lot of utility to the SEO community because I spend a lot of time thinking about the problems that we need to solve and how to solve them, and kind of like cross-pollinate with the community because I offer some free tools and they give me ideas back, and it's been really wonderful. The problem is because I've developed so many tools, rapid development, because we're not developing a tool for 6 months anymore. I do it over the weekend, and it does something, and it's really useful and has quality and utility. The problem is that I created so many tools that I lost track, and my team lost track. And people online were like, "Oh, what's that tool that you had that decides whether the search query will be grounded or not?" And then I have to go look it up and so on. So I decided to make things easier for myself, for my team, and for the public. And I just created one page with all my tools together. And I probably forgot some to include, but basically, if you go to dejan.ai/tool, that's it. That URL contains all the public tools and demos, including those tools based on models and so on. So some of probably the most popular tools have been Query Fanout tool, which helps you understand something that user types in. How will AI break it up into multiple searches and to do the grounding sources? Another one that's been quite popular is TreeWalker. TreeWalker helps you understand what are the things that the model wants to say about your brand in all the alternative universes? And what is the confidence level of the things that it said about you? Was the entropy high or low? Is the model really sure that you do this and that? Or it could have said something else about you. So that one let you explore that. Brand relevance is a popular tool because you can enter your brand and you can say, is this brand relevant to a certain search term? Yes, no. And this is one of our styles. Of course, I forgot to mention AI Rank. AI Rank is a tool where you can enter your brand and measure your visibility over time, which is quite funny because there is like at least 100 AI visibility tools right now, and people are paying $100,000 a year for them, some of them. And there's one that I have that you can use for free.
I've been using also an AI visibility tool, and it's quite impressive what so far the data shows. Talking about tools, I'm curious. You as a researcher, you use GPT, right? And the other LLM models. How do you use it? Can we learn something from you?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things to understand is that these models have limited context. So, for example, with Anthropic and OpenAI, you're looking about 250,000 tokens. So if you're just chatting a few things, getting some ideas for travel, that's fine. But if you're working on a project, like client work or serious project, as you go down and your chat becomes very long, you're basically exhausting that context and getting to the limit of models' ability to grasp that size, right? Because they have limited memory. And Anthropic will just say, I'm done. I can't have enough. I can't have any more chat. Let's close this session. And I think that's fair. Whereas OpenAI will silently summarize the beginnings of the conversation and compress it so that the memory of the early chat will crumble without your knowledge. And you'll start to wonder, why is the conversation falling apart? Google Gemini has 1 million tokens context, so you can go for a while. It's like you can store almost a book in that. But having the ability to store very large context doesn't mean it's going to do well, because they did attention probing for models, and they pay attention to the beginning and the end, and the middle gets lost, gets foggy. And you can lose important information, especially if you're engineering a problem or solving something, which is what we in SEO industry do quite a lot. So I try to explain how these models work in this way. When there is no chat, chat is an illusion. When I send a message and it comes back to me, to users, that seems like one message went back and one message went forward, but that's not what happens. What you don't see is that your message, the last message that you send to the model, is appended to your entire chat history and sent to the model as a single instance, and the model replies to you once. That instance is gone. So every time you message a model sees your entire chat history for the first and last time, sends you the reply, and that's it, session closed. So when you send a new message, you're chatting to a new instance of the model, which again has the full history, and it gives it a reply, and so on and so on. So if you think about it in these terms, when you're exchanging chat with the model doesn't have the time perception or anything like that, and they're completely disjointed sessions. There's no memory, new instance every time. So you're effectively crafting and drafting your final message. When the model gives you what you want, and then you abandon the chat, that means the draft is now a complete finished piece. You've solved the problem and you've closed the tab, and the session is gone. So effectively, the illusion of chat is just to help you get the information right to the model in such a way that the model will give you what you want. If you didn't have the back and forth exchange, you would have to work the full day on one prompt, write everything that you need to write, send it, and it would be perfectly crafted that the model can understand what you mean and give you in a single instance the reply that you requested. But we can't do that, humans. We have to go. So in a sense, the chat is there for humans to be guided to instruct the model properly. It's a context engineering crutch for humans who don't know how to prompt the model. And why am I saying this? Let's say you are continuously chatting to the model and you're burdening its context. And so you've had some errors in between and this and that, and then after a while, you've got a good solution. And then you continue from that point on. That's not what I do. When I have the good solution, but not the final solution, I copy that. I go up to the beginning of the chat to a certain spot. and I edit, paste that final solution, save, and I resume the conversation from that point onward. There is no a need or utility or purpose having all that problem solving in the way, because you just have the solution, you just put it right at the top and you continue the conversation from that point onward. What you're doing is you're basically carving out all that pointless token use and you're resuming the conversation from a healthy point. In Gemini and some of the other mods, you can actually have branches of the conversation. So I'm not just making things up. The model manufacturers have, or model creators have been thinking about this as well. So you can have paths. Even in AI Studio, you can have a certain point in a conversation from which you can branch off and go to a new path, or you can reverse back to it and start a new chat. So this is something that is quite new and puzzling to a lot of people, the fact that there is no chat and it's just one single big draft.
Yeah, you caught my attention over there. It's the chat is for the humans.
Yeah.
What is else for the humans? And we think it's AI or AI product, and we should be caring about. And I'm talking about, for example, in case when we as marketeers, we want to make sure our company, our client's brand is well perceived and also picked up by AI. What shall we know and be aware of it? Similar as chat is for humans.
Yeah. We have to be careful not to mislead ourselves by leading the model to certain conclusions and answers. And part of that is what I think most AI visibility tracking tools or AI ranking tracking tools get it wrong. They allow you to set fixed number of prompts that you track over time. And this is another form of illusion. And to me, that's just what we call AI work slop and busy work that doesn't really carry any meaningful output. Number one is models are stochastic in the nature. So if you have a prompt and you ask the model for an answer, it'll say one thing. And then the next day you ask it, it'll say a different thing. And the next day you ask it. And so that they call that prompt tracking. But if you have a prompt and you within 2 seconds refresh the model, it'll give you the different answer again and again and again and again. So you can do that a million times. It'll give you a million answers. So that's because the models can sample from a probability space allowed by its hyperparameters. So at every token that it can complete in its autocomplete sequence, model can sample from a variety of different things. And the temperature parameter allows how deep and wide it can sample. Can it go, like, if the temperature is above 1, it can really go deep and say weird things. If the temperature is 0, the model will always say a deterministic type of output. And I don't agree with the notion that you can get meaningful output out of regular probing of the same prompts over and over again, because you can, over time, achieve the same effect if you repeat that whole exercise. Let's say you're prompting for a month. You can do that within half a minute. Just once per second, refresh the model output, and you'll get the same data set within 30 seconds that you'll get over a month. So what did you do? You wasted your time and you wasted your money. And finally, you ended up with a lot of text output that you don't know what to do with. What do you actually do with a model output? Let's say your prompt is like, what is the best AI SEO expert in the world? And I'm hoping that I'm the one, So every day over 30 days, I keep getting answers, and sometimes I'm mentioned, sometimes I'm not. But like, okay, you've got 30 data points collected over a month. What do you do with that? You can do maybe capture when you're mentioned and extract frequency. In how many of these 30 prompts have I been mentioned? That's maybe something usable. But what do you do with the rest of the text, the surrounding text that's in there? So I don't like to get models to give me stories. What I like to do is I like to distill the model output to a structured format. So what I do instead is I say, Dan Petrovic, AI SEO, would you recommend him if somebody was asking for AI SEO? Yes, no. That's it. And the model can say one token. In the hyperparameters, in the parameters of the script, the model can physically not say more than a single token. It can say yes or no. These are its enums choices. And guess what? If it says no, I ignore it. Because I can sample the probability space of the model and I can see what was the likelihood of it saying yes. So even if it says no, I wouldn't recommend Dan Petrovic. I can still peek into its head and see what it was the chance of it saying yes. It was like 16%. Okay. So the chance probability of it saying yes was 16%, and probability of the other one was neg, and then maybe have some other options there. So what I do is I probe the model regularly, but I don't have them waste tokens and carbon emissions and burn a forest, as I say. I get them to distill their decision making, and that's what AI relevance tool is. Now, on the other side, I also have a little bit more liberal output, but still quite restricted. I say AI SEO optimization specialist. List 10 names that come to mind. And it gives me 10 names. And this is a JSON output, and you cannot do more than 10. And it has to be structured in JSON all the time. So what I do is I collect that over time, and I monitor the ranking position within those 10. So I monitor the frequency and the rank. So I now have a systemized, distilled, quantized, consistent output from the model. And I'm measuring frequency of mention, and I'm monitoring the position in the output of the 10. And I normalize both because position will always be 1 to 10, but frequency can go into hundreds if you continuously probe. So I normalize both values from 0 to 1. I multiply them, and I use the product as my AI visibility score. Beautiful, elegant. And I like to do that, and I don't like to do AI work slope.
Mm. It's very interesting what you're saying, because as you mentioned, tapping into SEO world with different names for the new type of naming what we were always doing, optimizing for search engine optimization. It's interesting how great minds think alike. Been using tools like you were mentioning, and I will check out definitely a tool you mentioned and you worked already out to see how frequency and also how our brands are visible towards AI tools. Then we are closing into towards the end of this episode. Is it any other subject which you would like to discuss and we haven't touched on yet regarding AI SEO?
I'd just like to make a remark that large language models, especially GPT grade and Gemini grade, are not the whole of AI. There's a whole world of machine learning that you need to be aware of and explore, because you don't necessarily need to rent a bulldozer to dig a little hole in your garden. Use a little shovel to do that. So use tool appropriate things. If you need to do classification of 1 million keywords, you don't need to use Gemini for that. You can use a small classification model for sentiment analysis. You can do small models, and I'm talking models that run on your laptop. You don't need an API call for that. Small models that can do query classification. My query fan-out model is a small model. You can do named entity extraction, sentiment mining, keyword classification, text classification, link prediction. There's a whole world of utility that classic machine learning stuff can do. And these are even the ones that I mentioned now. These are all deep learning models. You can go even further back to things like regression and all the old statistical models like random forest, like XGBoost and old school traditional things that can solve your problems just fine. So don't brute force everything with AI, and for the love of God, stop creating videos and images. They are really the most polluting things on this planet. I'll give you one simple and elegant tip. Rather than getting GPT to give you that GPT AI looking picture that you're asking, ask it to code an SVG artwork for you. So it'll create the code and it'll look actually quite nice. You can guide it to be minimalist style and this and that. So get it to do that and they take a screenshot of it. You will not have AI generated media, which will be detectable and so on. It will have a beautiful original artwork that doesn't look like AI generated slop. There's a lot more we could cover, but I think we have to wrap up at some point. And I think choosing optimal solutions for optimal tasks is probably one thing that people should pay attention to.
Thank you, Dan. It was a great pleasure to talk with you. Of course, you're always welcome back. I have one last question, which is probably impossible to answer, but I challenge you to do so. We know that AI and, well, including with this universe of SEO, where AI also is part of it, is changing rapidly, and it's hard to predict where we're going. But since I'm talking to a person who managed to predict what's going to happen in 2025 with a dialogue with Google, what do you think will be looking the SEO universe in 5 years? I'm not pushing you for 10 years. 10 years, it's probably hard to.
Yeah, 5 years will be very much agentic era. So surfaces like phones, websites, apps will become optional. And my agent will talk to your agent and they'll work things out. Appointment booking, travel arrangements, purchases. Like I have some pets at home. I have some birds. My AI will order some food for them, sort out the payment, and just the bird seed will arrive at my door. So visiting somebody's website to read content, visiting somebody's website to make a purchase will be a thing of an option, not so much a necessity as it is now. So I'm very sure that this is something that Amazon and eBay and the likes of working on very, very hard. How do they fit into this ecosystem? So there will be an agentic layer underneath that will remove the interface surfaces, and it'll operate as a sort of like a background layer of humanity with micropayments, with protocols, with model contexts, and so on. So in 5 years, this is quite feasible. And then in 5 years after that, we might hit a new novel architecture that I'm sure somebody's quietly working on, where we see true artificial intelligence that is more general than the large language models that we're seeing now. Large language models are scaling pretty well, and they provide a lot of utility, and they seem intelligent. As we all know, they're just parroting whatever they heard from the training data, they're parroting back to us. So 5 years from now, full-on agentic web. 5 years from then, we'll have artificial general intelligence. That is my prediction.
Then it was a fascinating discussion. We have a closing tradition for this show in our studio, which is that every guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing that next guest who is going to be and what's his expertise. So the question what was left for you from our last guest, it's in Romanian, but I will translate to you. And it's quite localized geographically, but you are familiar with our area, so hopefully you're able to respond to this. How could we transfer Romania into a hub of importance at regional and international level? It doesn't say technically or industrially or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. I like to think about these types of things. I have a note in my Google Keep from many years ago that I forgot about, and it was something quite outrageous as an idea. I think I predicted that Estonia will replace its government with AI. Mm. And I hear this is a little bit more south to the region, but Albania just replaced one of its ministers with an AI model. And I think it would be a fascinating thing if Romania became a machine learning hub of Europe through infrastructure, energy and steel, data centers, massive amount of GPUs, and become a European leader in AI, because Europe has honestly been sleeping and lagging behind the rest of the world. We've got America and China leading the efforts in machine learning and AI and artificial intelligence, and Europe worrying about regulations and ethics and all sorts of European problems. And while Europeans are squabbling, the rest of the world is running over them. So I think there's an enormous opportunity for the country to assert itself as a dominant force in machine learning and artificial intelligence. But this has to be done on infrastructure level. There has to be power supplies locally established, good sites for constructing the data centers. There's no shortage of talent. You've got a lot of people in the IT, and so I think the ground is ripe for growth. I think you could literally transform the economy if you double down on that, and if you have the government support and perhaps even foreign investment.
Okay, thank you, and I hope that the rightful eyes and ears are listening to your recommendation. That was it, the Forum IT episode. Thank you for joining us, and I welcome you then anytime you have interesting news or things to share with us, and of course in Romania to be in person in the studio. Thank you all, and wish you a great week, and hope to see you next week in the next Forum IT episode.